This is Shadowline News, bringing you the stories that matter most. A troubling pattern emerges as prominent human rights activist Boniface Mwangi finds himself once again in police custody, arrested from his Machakos home in what appears to be a coordinated dawn raid. Mwangi was taken from his residence at Courage Base on Saturday, with authorities seizing his electronic devices and linking him to alleged acts of terrorism and arson connected to recent anti-government protests. His wife and Jerry confirmed the arrest, describing how officers raided their home before taking her husband to DCI headquarters on Kiambu Road. The timing of this arrest raises serious questions about state intimidation tactics. Just one day before his detention, Mwangi had filed a case with his Ugandan colleague, Agatha Atuhaire, against the Tanzanian government, seeking justice for what they describe as horrific human rights violations. To understand the gravity of the situation, we must examine who Boniface Mwangi is and why his voice has become so threatening to those in power. Born in 1983, Mwangi emerged as one of Kenya's most fearless photojournalists before transforming into the country's most recognizable human rights activist. His journey from documenting the 2007-2008 post-election violence to becoming a relentless crusader against corruption has made him a household name across East Africa. Mwangi's activism extends far beyond Kenya's borders, positioning him as a regional voice for justice and accountability. His work has consistently challenged authoritarian tendencies across East Africa, making him a target for governments uncomfortable with scrutiny. The activist has never shied away from confronting power, whether through his photography, his political campaigns, or his unwavering advocacy for the marginalized. But before you continue listening, make sure you're subscribed to Shadowline News because stories like these demand your attention and support. We're the channel that refuses to look away when others choose silence. The events leading to this arrest paint a disturbing picture of cross-border persecution and state-sponsored brutality. In May, Mwangi traveled to Tanzania to show solidarity with opposition leader Tundu Lissu during his court appearance, only to be arrested at his hotel and held incommunicado. What followed was a nightmare that would haunt any defender of human rights. Mwangi was found abandoned at the Kenya-Tanzania border on May 22nd, appearing severely beaten after what he described as, quote, 4 dark days of torture. His disappearance sparked protests from rights activists who piled pressure on the Kenyan government to rescue its national, while the Ministry of Foreign Affairs noted that consular officials were denied access despite several requests, with concerns mounting about his health and whereabouts. The case Mwangi and Atuhaire filed represents more than personal justice. It's a direct challenge to the culture of impunity that has allowed East African governments to silence critics with brutal efficiency. Their lawsuit at the East African Court of Justice accuses Tanzania of grave human rights violations, including enforced disappearance, torture, arbitrary detention, sexual abuse, and unlawful deportation, seeking 130 million shillings in compensation, along with public apologies from Tanzania, Uganda, and Kenya. This pattern of disappearances and mysterious detentions has become alarmingly familiar across the region. The fact that Mwangi's whereabouts remain unknown to his family echoes countless other cases where activists, journalists, and opposition figures simply vanish into the night. These disappearances serve a chilling purpose: to instill fear in anyone who dares challenge those in power. The broader context reveals a systematic crackdown on dissent that transcends national boundaries. Tanzania's government faces growing accusations of repression, with human rights defenders reporting they were beaten and sexually assaulted while in custody. This isn't isolated brutality, it's coordinated suppression of democratic voices across East Africa. Hit that notification bell because Shadowline News will continue tracking this story as it develops. Your engagement helps us bring these crucial stories to light when mainstream media might choose to stay silent. What makes Mwangi's case particularly significant is how it exposes the vulnerability of even the most prominent activists. If someone with his international profile and extensive network can be tortured and disappeared, what protection exists for lesser-known defenders of human rights? The message being sent is crystal clear. No one is safe from state retribution. The charges of terrorism and arson being leveled against Mwangi appear to follow a familiar playbook used by authoritarian regimes worldwide. By labeling legitimate protest and activism as terrorism, governments attempt to justify extreme measures while discrediting their opponents in the court of public opinion. This tactic transforms defenders of democracy into alleged threats to national security. The silence surrounding Mwangi's current whereabouts is deafening and deeply troubling. In an age of instant communication and social media, the ability to make someone disappear speaks to the sophisticated nature of modern state repression. Families left in limbo, lawyers denied access, and the public kept in the dark. These are the tools of authoritarian control. What we're witnessing isn't just about one activist or one country. It's about the future of democratic space across East Africa. When governments can operate with such impunity, crossing borders to silence critics, and using torture as a tool of intimidation, the very foundation of civil society comes under threat. Every detention, every disappearance, every act of brutality against activists chips away at the rights we all depend on. The international community's response to these violations will determine whether such actions become normalized or face meaningful consequences. Amnesty International has called for urgent investigation into the torture and forcible deportation of both activists. But words without action only embolden those who believe they can act with complete impunity. This is Shadowline News, committed to shining light in the darkest corners of power. Stay informed, stay engaged, and never forget that democracy dies in darkness. The story of Boniface Mwangi is far from over, and neither is our coverage of the forces trying to silence voices of conscience across East Africa.